Okay, I'm going to get started this morning by just welcoming all of you guys. Welcome to Watang Yu. Welcome to everyone online who's joining us as well. As you guys probably know, I usually start with meditation at the beginning of our class, but today I'm going to actually teach you some meditation before we do meditation together, because in this particular course, Harmony in Relationships, this loving kindness meditation is really important to transform your mind away from the anger, hatred, and ill will, and all those lesser versions like frustration, irritation, annoyance. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't even have the slightest dislike towards other beings, where right now that's probably not the case. So this meditation is going to help you with many number of things. It's going to help you to eliminate all those discontent feelings towards other beings, but also towards yourself as well. Because sometimes people have like an inner dialogue that is degrading and diminishing, and you're unkind to yourself. So this meditation is going to help you with that too. So I'm going to teach it to you, and then we're going to actually do it together. We're going to take a break, and then when we come back, I'm going to teach you a topic called identifying cravings, analysis of the mind, where I'm going to teach you how to go in and almost surgically eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. Then we'll kind of check in on the time. What we'll probably be able to do is teach you the Brahma Viharas, or the 4 healthy mental states of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And we'll pretty much be done before lunch, where if we need more time, we have after lunch, but typically on Tuesday, this particular course, we usually end prior to lunch. So we'll just kind of see where things are by the time we get to that point. So this topic of loving kindness meditation, just like always, you guys are welcome to ask any and all questions that you like as I'm teaching. If you would like to ask questions here at the temple, if you could use the microphones, just turning on the gray button, you'll see the lights come on, and just hold it up to your chin. We'll be able to hear you here, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. And then for those of you guys that are online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. And then you can just keep these microphones with you, and if you could turn it off when you're not using it, that would be great. And as you keep it with you, there might be someone around you that could use it as well, so you might decide to share it with others. Okay, so there's these 4 meditations that the Buddha taught. These are the only 4 that he actually taught during his lifetime. There's probably hundreds and thousands of meditations that exist in the world today, but oftentimes those meditations are taking your mind in the opposite direction of enlightenment without people necessarily realizing that that's what's occurring. All meditation is not the same. What meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind, and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. And you're doing this in the seated, lying, standing, or walking positions. And the Buddha shares very clearly that he taught 4 meditations, and there's specific goals behind each one of these meditations. There's certain qualities of mind that you're eliminating, certain unwholesome qualities, and then there's certain wholesome qualities that you're cultivating. So oftentimes students have learned breathing mindfulness meditation with me up to this point if they're joining into a particular class like this, but maybe you guys haven't learned that with me, but at least you maybe did it with me, where I've guided you in a meditation, a breathing mindfulness meditation. What you're doing in this meditation is you're eliminating what's called craving, desire, attachment. This is the longing, the yearning. This is forming your inner feelings based on some condition. That if you get what you want, you're happy, you're excited. But if you don't get what you want, you're angry, you're frustrated, or sad, or some other discontent feeling that's very painful. It's your own mind that's causing any feeling that you experience. It's caused by your own mind. As we were talking about yesterday with the 4 Noble Truths, oftentimes people think it's other people that are causing you to experience any particular feeling. It's not your parents or your siblings or your boss or your neighbors or people like this, your life partner, your children. They aren't the ones who are causing you to be angry or sad or frustrated. It's your own mind that's causing this. And you need to be able to see this through the 4 Noble Truths, that the cause of these discontent feelings is the mind holding on, wanting things to be permanent. So this breathing mindfulness meditation trains your mind to let go, let go, let go. That's why when you're focused on the breath and the mind moves off the breath, you let go and then come back to the breath. And this over time gradually trains your mind to let go, along with other things that the Buddha taught as well. And you're cultivating the wholesome qualities of mindfulness and concentration. The mindfulness is your awareness of mind. You're going to need to be aware of your thoughts, your ideas, your feelings, things that are going through your mind. Because when the unwholesome things are coming up in day-to-day life, you need to cut that off and let it go. And then when you have wholesome qualities, you need to support those and encourage those, not allowing them to fade. So this is a full-time practice. It's not just during meditation that you're moving your mind towards enlightenment. It's in your day-to-day life too. If you're driving in traffic and someone cuts you off and you're noticing anger coming up in your mind, you need to cut that off and let it go. At the bodily sensations, like we were talking about with the right mindfulness. So it's this meditation that's going to help you to develop the awareness of mind or mindfulness and the concentration to be able to focus in your day-to-day life. Because now you can apply your full practice of the Eightfold Path that we taught about yesterday. So this meditation is pivotal. This is the primary form of meditation that the Buddha did, making his way to enlightenment. But of course, it's not just meditation that you need to get to enlightenment. You wouldn't be able to meditate your way to enlightenment. Sometimes people think that the Buddha sat under a tree, he meditated, and then he instantly got to enlightenment. And this isn't actually true. It was gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress that led to his enlightenment. But he does describe this as being a primary form of meditation because it addresses the primary problem, which is the craving, desire, attachment. That's what it addresses. So that's why that's the primary form of meditation. But as you're eliminating your cravings, desires, attachments, your sensual desire, longing, yearning, wanting things to be a certain way, expecting things to be a certain way, that's automatically going to help eliminate some of your anger, your frustration, your agitation, annoyance, and things like this. Because that's the whole reason why the mind is experiencing that, because of its craving, desire, attachment. That's why people dislike others, because they have certain expectations. They want everybody to be a certain way. And if you meet that mold that is in their mind, they like you. But if you don't meet those expectations, they dislike you. Right? So this is what your mind's doing in all kinds of situations. So just doing this breathing mindfulness meditation and all the other aspects of the Eightfold Path is going to automatically help you eliminate some of your anger and frustration and those other painful feelings. But then you're going to need loving kindness meditation to go in and specifically address the unwholesome quality of anger, hatred, ill will, frustration, agitation, annoyance, resentment, hostility, bitterness. All of this needs to be eliminated from the mind in order to get to enlightenment. Because an enlightened being's mind is going to be completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. There's none of those types of things in an enlightened mind. It's physically impossible for an enlightened being to experience things like anger, hatred, ill will, frustration, agitation, annoyance, resentment, even the slightest dislike towards others. So while you're working with your breathing mindfulness meditation consistently over multiple days, you need to also be working with the loving kindness meditation as well. And typically you start your day with loving kindness meditation. It's kind of like filling up your gas tank with loving kindness, and you go out into the world and you practice through your intention, speech, and actions to be loving and kind. And this is where the real transformation is occurring. So the meditation is exercising your mind to be loving and kind. And now you can practice those qualities, that wholesome quality of loving kindness when you go out into the world. There's these other two meditations that I teach in other programs that I share. We won't go into those right now, but this is a slide that I use in all of those different courses. So in terms of what is loving kindness is active goodwill towards all beings without judgment. Sometimes when we're growing up, we're taught, don't respect others until they respect you first, right? Well, if everybody was doing this, nobody would be respecting anybody. Because I'd be like, well, I'm not respecting you until you respect me. Well, I'm not going to respect you until you respect me. Okay, nobody's respecting anybody, right? So if you did that with your loving kindness, where it's like, I'm not going to show you love and kindness until you show me love and kindness, right? If you did this, then nobody would be loving and kind to each other at all, right? So an enlightened being isn't a follower. They don't conform to what other people are doing. Instead, you need to break through the wall of anger and hatred and be loving and kind with all beings. So rather than having conditions like you have to do these things and then I will be loving and kind with you, you would like to erase all of that. You would like to practice unconditional love, where someone doesn't have to earn your love, but you just are loving and kind with all beings regardless. So that's what loving kindness is, a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. You might hear this referred to occasionally in the Pali word of metta. I don't use the Pali words. I just use English because it's easier for everyone to understand, right? So loving kindness is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well without judgment, having genuine interest in seeing everyone be well. And this will help you to eliminate your anger, hatred, and ill will within your mind. And this is going to gradually transform your mind. So loving kindness is the antidote or the wholesome root or the remedy for these painful feelings of anger, hatred, ill will, and all those lesser versions as well. It helps you eliminate the harshness, bitterness, hostility, and resentment from the mind. This is one of the Brahma Viharas, which are 4 healthy mental states. We're going to talk about those later today, but it's one of the Brahma Viharas. So here's some of the words of the Buddha on loving kindness. I'm going to share a bunch of words with you guys so you can see that the Buddha actually taught loving kindness. Because as I've shared with you guys, none of the teachings of the Buddha are based in belief. You need to learn, examine, and investigate the teachings. You need to reflect on them, to independently verify them, and then practice them. Integrate them into your day-to-day life, and now you cultivate wisdom and you can see the truth. But here are some places on the Eightfold Path where the Buddha is putting loving kindness into his path to enlightenment. As I shared with you guys yesterday, the Eightfold Path is the core central teaching where everything else is connecting into it. So here's some words from the Buddha where you can see in right intention, the intention of renunciation, non-ill will, which that's a double negative. So that means goodwill, right? Non-ill will means goodwill. The intention of harmlessness, right? So you need to have the right thinking or the right thought or the right intention of practicing this non-ill will or this goodwill towards all beings, where you're disinterested in causing harm, where you're incapable of causing harm. Because if you put out any harm, harm is just going to come back to you in your day-to-day life. So that's why the Buddha is teaching that in there. And then in the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, if you remember under right speech, there's those 5 factors: speaking at the proper time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. The Buddha is helping you to see the natural laws of how to speak in ways that is harmless so that you can have wholesome results in your day-to-day relationships and you can develop harmonious relationships. So that 5th factor is with a mind of loving kindness. The opposite of that would be to speak with inner hate. And this is where you can independently verify the teachings of the Buddha. You know that when you've spoken with inner hate, it hasn't turned out well for you, right? Maybe a relationship was ended. Maybe you lost a job. Maybe you had all kinds of other difficulties. That was the unwholesome karma or the unwholesome results of speaking with a mind of inner hate. But when you speak with a mind of loving kindness, this is going to produce wholesome karma or wholesome results. That's a natural law. That's why he's sharing it with you. Not as a rule or a commandment, not as trying to convince you to do anything. He's just helping you see the natural laws of what did it take for him to get to enlightenment, and now you can understand that too. But how could you speak with a mind of loving kindness if you didn't have a technique to cultivate it within your mind? So that's why he teaches loving kindness meditation, to help you learn how to cultivate loving kindness in your mind, so then your speech can emanate from that loving kindness. And now you'll have better results in your day-to-day relationships. Here's a teaching where the Buddha is talking to his ordained practitioners, and I just kind of grabbed it out of a larger teaching. Prior to this, he was talking to his ordained practitioners, and he was teaching them the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. And he was reminding them that he was teaching them to speak at the proper time, what they say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. But he was reminding them other people aren't going to talk to you that way. Other people are going to speak with you in an untimely way. They're going to speak to you with falsehoods. They're going to speak to you with harsh speech. They're going to speak to you unbeneficially. And they're going to speak to you with a mind of inner hate. And then he says, okay, when that's occurring, when they're speaking to you that way, he says, herein, monks, you should train thus. Our minds will remain unaffected. We shall utter no evil words. We shall reside compassionate for their welfare, with a mind of loving kindness, without inner hate. We shall reside enveloping that person with a mind filled with loving kindness, and starting with him, we shall reside enveloping the all-encompassing world with a mind filled with loving kindness, abundant, joyful, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. That is how you should train monks, right? So he's explaining that, hey, even though other people are talking to you in unwise ways, in order to get your mind to enlightenment, you need to learn to be unaffected by these other people's speech. Instead of forming your feelings based on how other people speak, instead remain unaffected, because that would be your mind craving permanence. If you want everybody to talk to you polite, kind, friendly, respectful, well, you'll be happy when they do that. But when they don't, you'll be angry and frustrated. But it's not them that's causing that. It's your own mind craving permanence, when in reality, you live in an impermanent world. Not everybody's going to speak with you polite, kind, friendly, respectful. And that's their choice. But you don't need to form feelings based on that. You can get to the point where you're unaffected. You just realize, that's unfortunate, the person's speaking that way. But you don't have to be angry or frustrated, but you will be if you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind. So if you can start with this person, what the Buddha is saying is this person who's angry or harsh or bitter or speaking in unwise, have loving kindness for them, a genuine interest in seeing them be well. And one of the things you might decide to do in that situation is just walk away, right? No need to sit there and get angry and yell at them and argue with them. And who do you think you are talking to me like that? I don't deserve that. Why? They're already choosing to talk that way. They're unwise. You going out in the world and trying to teach other people what they should or shouldn't be doing, that would just be coming from your own craving and your own conceit. It's better to just walk away. It's not the proper time for you to talk. This person is angry, they're hostile, they're bitter. It doesn't make sense to talk to them. That's why the Buddha gives you those 5 factors of well-spoken speech. And the very first one is making sure it's the proper time to speak. And if their mind is angry and frustrated, it's not the proper time to speak. So the Buddha is reminding you here, be unaffected by this person's speech, right? Have loving kindness for them, a genuine interest in seeing them be well. And part of that might be you just choose to walk away, right? And that's usually the best thing to do in those situations. So this is one of the teachings where the Buddha is talking about loving kindness and how to implement it in your day-to-day life. But here's some other words from the Buddha on loving kindness. This first one is actually teaching his son. Sometimes people think that the Buddha left his family and he never came back. This isn't actually true. You'll hear all kinds of things that are untrue in the world about the Buddha. But when you study his original teachings, you'll see what is true. You'll see what he taught and what he didn't teach. He left his family for 6 years to go train his mind, but then he ended up coming back, and his family ended up ordaining with him. His son, his wife, his mother, which was his stepmother. He had brothers brother-in-laws, cousins, all these different people were coming to ordain with him. So his son came and ordained with him, and he learned, and he actually got to enlightenment. His wife got to enlightenment, and his stepmom got to enlightenment during his lifetime too, right? So here he's teaching his son Rahula. He says, Rahula, develop meditation on loving kindness. For when you develop meditation on loving kindness, any ill will be abandoned. This is how a Buddha teaches. Very clear, very concise, and very precise. You don't have to interpret those words. You don't have to figure out what he's trying to say. There's no way to misunderstand that. He's saying very clearly, loving kindness meditation eliminates ill will. Right? It's very clear. So the Buddha is teaching this because that's what he did to be able to eliminate his anger, hatred, and ill will. And he knew that that's what would lead to other people eliminating their anger, hatred, and ill will as well. So that's why he taught it. Here he says, loving kindness should be developed to abandon ill will. This is the practice of loving kindness, not just the meditation. The first one is about the meditation. The second one is about going out into the world and practicing through your intention, speech, and actions to be loving and kind. And that's why in the Eightfold Path, he taught right speech, right action, right livelihood, and all those different things that you learned yesterday so that you can be loving and kind, because that's where you're going to transform your mind and transform your relationships. Oftentimes people think the way to transform your relationships is to change other people. This doesn't work. You can't change other people. You need to change your own mind. And it's these techniques that are going to help you to be able to do that. Here's another teaching from the Buddha. And again, let me just set it up to help you understand it. if you think about during the lifetime of the Buddha 2,500 years ago, you probably think like he's the only one teaching. Because if a Buddha lived during your lifetime, you'd probably be interested in learning from a Buddha. But not everybody knows that a Buddha is a Buddha during that person's lifetime. So there's some people who didn't know he was an actual Buddha. And there are plenty of other people who were teaching during his lifetime. It wasn't just him that was teaching. There were people teaching various different things. And the Buddha knew that those teachings didn't lead to enlightenment, and he just stayed focused on sharing his teachings so that the students could learn and be able to get to enlightenment. But these other teachers, they had students and the Buddha had students. And sometimes these students would come together from the various teachers and they would spend time together, kind of like now. I bet you guys probably go out into the community and you might encounter someone who has a teacher from somewhere else, and they talk and they kind of compare notes and share what one teacher is talking about versus what another teacher is talking about. So the Buddha was talking to his students and he said, suppose they ask. What he's talking about is these other students from other teachers. Suppose those students from other teachers ask you, but what, friends, is the reason unarisen anger does not arise and arisen anger is abandoned? You should answer, the liberation of mind by loving kindness. For one who attends carefully to the liberation of the mind by loving kindness, any unarisen anger does not arise, and the arisen anger is abandoned. This, friends, is the reason unarisen anger does not arise, and arisen anger is abandoned. Right? So he's just saying very clearly, he's saying any unarisen anger does not arise when you have loving kindness meditation and practicing loving kindness. What he means by unarisen anger is like right now you're just listening to me. You probably don't have any anger in your mind unless something happened at some point during your morning. Right now, you don't have any anger in your mind, but you have a deeply rooted container, the mental objects that we were talking about yesterday, something like ill will. That if something happens where one of your cravings get triggered, your anger will arise. It will get triggered. Your mind will experience anger because of your cravings, desires, attachments. Right now, you don't have any anger in your mind, but you have the capability to become angry. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't have the capability to get angry. It's physically impossible for an enlightened being to get angry. But in the unenlightened state, there's a deeply rooted container called ill will that can arise, but this is called the unarisen anger. So he's saying, what's the reason why this unarisen anger does not arise? Well, it's loving kindness. If you practice loving kindness, that unarisen anger won't arise. And then he says, how do you abandon arisen anger? So once your anger does arise, how do you get rid of it? Loving kindness. That's what's going to help you to get rid of it. So at any point in your day, if you're noticing your mind's angry or frustrated or irritated or annoyed, or even you're having dislike towards someone else, you need to apply the effort to arise your loving kindness in your mind. That's what's going to get rid of the anger and all those other lesser versions. Ultimately, if you do this enough over the course of multiple years, you won't have any anger at all. It'll be completely uprooted. That mental object of ill will be completely out of the mind, and it'll be physically impossible for you to experience anger. And it's loving kindness meditation and practicing loving kindness in day-to-day life that's going to do that for you. So this is the words of the Buddha helping you to be able to see that. Okay, so do you guys have any questions on what I've been sharing so far before I teach you how to actually do loving kindness meditation? Anything you'd like to ask? Let me check online. You have something, Terrence? Yeah, go ahead. By the way, did you know today's Tuesday? Yes. Okay, because I usually only see you on Sunday and Wednesday, and sometimes Saturday. Oh, good. Do
you hear me?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I can't think where it was, maybe the slide before, but you talked about renunciation. Yeah. And I was wondering, are we renouncing desires and things like that, or what exactly are we renouncing?
Yeah, what the intention of renunciation is that you have the thinking or the thought or the intention to let go of your false beliefs, opinions, and views, and your unwholesomeness, because there's certain things that are in your mind that are false beliefs. Right? False opinions, false views. That's the reason why you get angry and sad and frustrated and irritated and annoyed. If you didn't have that in your mind, you wouldn't experience that, because you would know the truth and you wouldn't have these false beliefs in the mind. So what you're doing with the teachings of the Buddha is you're not bringing in new beliefs to get rid of your old beliefs. You're bringing in wisdom. And when you see the truth, then it conflicts with what you currently believe about the world. And now you're like, whoa, I need to get rid of that belief. And now I have wisdom. So one of the first false beliefs that an individual needs to get rid of in order to get to enlightenment is that other people are causing you to be angry. And that's what you learn through the Four Noble Truths. And you independently verify that through studying the Four Noble Truths and then looking in your own life and seeing how it is that your own mind is causing the discontent feelings. And now when you see this wisdom, like, oh my goodness, it is my mind. It's been my mind all along. Like all these years, I've been thinking it's other people who are causing me to be angry. And now you need to be willing to let that go. That's what renunciation means. So there's certain false beliefs, opinions, and views that you're going to need to let go of, essentially keeping an open mind to learning this wisdom and letting go of this stuff that isn't serving you well anymore. And then there's certain unwholesome moral conduct that each unenlightened being is involved in, and they need to be willing to let that go too. Because as long as you're putting out unwholesome moral conduct, it's just going to produce harm, and then this harm is going to come back to you. So that's what the intention of renunciation is. Okay. All right. I don't see any other questions either online or here at the temple. So now let me share with you guys how to actually do loving kindness meditation. So we're going to start with some chanting to ease us into the meditation. And these chants, as I mentioned to you guys yesterday, it's not a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony, a worship, or a prayer, or anything like that. The Buddha never taught any of those kinds of things. If you see those things associated with the teachings of the Buddha, those aren't the teachings of the Buddha. So he used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings because they didn't have the ability to write things down during his lifetime. So they just used chanting as a learning tool. Where today, people oftentimes take on this mystical or magical approach with chanting. That's not the case. Chanting has no ability to produce any kind of magical thing, right? It's not like a spell or anything like that. You can't just recite words and magically have something appear in front of you. So oftentimes people have all kinds of beliefs about these things, but I can assure you, and you can see for yourself, that there's nothing mystical or magical about a chant, that it was only used for a learning tool. So I use it today as a way to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. Because when you're chanting, it helps you build awareness of mind and awareness of the breath, so that by the time you get into meditation, you're ready to meditate and start getting benefit right away, because you've kind of exercised the mind a little bit before you go into chanting or into meditation. So I teach chanting in some of the other programs. I actually work with the students to help them learn how to chant. And then in this particular course, we just do it together. So if you learn how to do it, it'll help you get more benefit out of the meditation. Once we're in the meditation after the chanting, I'm going to guide you in a breathing mindfulness meditation session, helping you guys to prepare the mind for loving kindness. So we're going to do breathing mindfulness meditation where there's a little bit of guidance, and then there's going to be a little brief period of time where you're doing breathing mindfulness meditation, just like 3 minutes or so. Then I'm going to come in with these phrases of, may I be peaceful. You're going to hear me say it out loud. And when you hear me say it, you would like to repeat it within your own mind on the out breath. And then when you get to your next breath, you're going to hear me say, may I be safe. And then again, on your out breath, you would like to say that internally within your mind. Then may I be well. May I be free of all discontentedness and the suffering it causes. So we start with I, because it would be very challenging for you to have loving kindness for others until you learn how to have loving kindness for yourself. So you're essentially rewiring the mind to be more loving and kind to all beings, including yourself, so that now, having a healthy relationship with yourself, your own mind, now you can have loving kindness for others. Then we're going to go through some rings that become wider and wider and wider. This is just a learning tool. I'm not going to do it like this, but you're going to see these rings that are going to be established. Like, may mom and dad be peaceful, safe, well, and free of discontentedness. May my friends, family, neighbors, and coworkers, right, be peaceful, safe, well, and free of discontentedness. So I'm going to go through these different rings and then eventually getting to all beings. After that, we're going to go back to breathing mindfulness meditation and then out with the chanting. So the way I think about it is like a loving kindness sandwich. You've got loving kindness in the middle. The lettuce and tomato is like the breathing mindfulness meditation. And then the bread holding it all together, that's the chanting. Okay. So when we're doing these phrases, sometimes when people hear it, you're going to hear me say things like, may mom and dad be peaceful. Sometimes people think it's like a prayer and you're trying to change mom and dad. That's not the case. What you're doing is you're rewiring your mind so that now when you're around mom and dad, you can be more loving and kind. You can change other people through your meditation. If that was possible, there'd be no such thing as prisons. There'd be no murders or rapes or child abuse, because people like us would get together and we'd all meditate, and then we'd instantly change everybody else in the world, and then the world would be peaceful. But it's not possible to do that. Each individual person needs to train their own mind. So whenever you're meditating, it's training your mind. So this meditation isn't to change other people. It's not to invoke some supreme being to change mom or dad or create any particular thing. This is to rewire your mind so that now when you're around mom and dad, you can be more loving and kind. And that's what's going to transform your relationship. That through your intention, speech, and actions, by being loving and kind and putting that out, that's more and more what will come back to you over time. You need to gradually wear away the anger, the bitterness, the harshness, the hostility, the animosity, things like this. And this meditation is going to help you to do that. But then you go out into the world and be loving and kind through your intention, speech, and actions. So do you guys have questions on how we do this meditation? No questions? Okay. I don't see anything online either. Okay, so I'm going to guide you guys in this meditation then, give you guys a chance to practice it. And then each morning we're going to start out with this meditation so you can see what that's like and start building up your practice. If you would like to chant along with me, the chants are over there on the cabinet on the laminated sheet. You're welcome to get a sheet and chant along with me if you like. And then I'm going to come in with the guidance for breathing mindfulness meditation. And then we'll come in with the guidance for loving kindness. For those of you guys that are online, if you'd like to see this chanting sheet, you can go to our website, buddhadailywisdom.com, click on free books, and then down towards the bottom, you're going to see the daily chanting sheet. And that's what we're going to be chanting as part of the meditation. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakewa Bhutang Mahakewanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakewata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakewato Sāvaka Saṅkho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakeva Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakatoro Kawitu anuttero purisa Dhamma sati satatawa manusana Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled. Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath. Either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now, and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. Then I'll be back with more guidance on loving kindness meditation. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Continuing to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Whenever you get to your next out breath, repeat this phrase in the mind. May I be peaceful. May I be safe. May I be well. May I be free of all discontentedness and the suffering that it causes. May mom and dad be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness and the suffering it may cause. May my family, friends, neighbors, and co-workers all be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness and the suffering that it causes. May all those who have caused me harm be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. May all those who I have harmed be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. May all beings, wherever they reside, be peaceful. May all beings be safe. May all beings be well. May all beings be free of discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. Now return back to breathing mindfulness meditation, focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakewa Potang Mahakewanang Apiwateyami Savakato Emakewata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Emakewato Savaka Sangho สังฆังนามามินับโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสเอมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรโภริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามานุสนังปุตโตภาควาติ Okay, if you'd like to slowly make your way out of meditation. All right, I'm just going to highlight a few things about this meditation, and then I'm going to open up to questions that you guys have, just kind of clarifying a few things and giving you guys opportunity to ask any questions now that you have had an opportunity to practice it. As I mentioned at the beginning, this meditation is to transform your mind. It's not to change other people. So always keep that in mind, that even though you're using these phrases, may mom be peaceful, may dad be peaceful, and so forth and so on. It's about transforming your mind. And because of that, you're going to need to customize this meditation. The phrases that I used, they're because I'm leading a large group of people and I'm selecting phrases that are going to apply to everybody. But you would actually like to select phrases that are unique to you. So if you have people in your life, or if you've had people in your life in the past that you have anger or resentment or hostility towards, you're going to need to include them in your meditation. So let's just say there's an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend named whatever. You would like to include them in your meditation. If you have anger and hatred in your mind, if you have certain teachers or certain neighbors or certain friends that your mind is still holding on to bitterness towards, you're going to need to include them in your meditation. So rather than these affirmations or these phrases, you might say, may Bob be peaceful, safe, well, and free of discontentedness. May Susie be peaceful. So you're going to need to have specific names for people. And that's where your mindfulness comes in. You need to look inward and be honest with yourself about what your mind's holding on to in terms of resentment or hostility. These might be people who are currently in your life, or they could be people long in the past. You might not ever even see these people ever again. They might even be dead. But if your mind's holding on to anger or resentment or hostility or even the slightest dislike towards them, your mind isn't liberated yet. So you're going to need to include them in your meditation. You can do a person, you could do a group of people, like say you have anger towards all police officers or lawyers or politicians, right? You can include them. You can say, may all politicians be peaceful, right? May all police officers be peaceful, safe, well, and free of discontentedness. So you can do groups of individuals too. Typically, the way people organize this is they'll do 1 or 2 rings of people who they already have loving kindness for, to kind of bubble that up in the mind. Then you go through a ring or 2 of people you're more neutral about. You don't hate them, but you don't actually, necessarily love them either. So this is maybe like neighbors or coworkers or people like this. You might put a ring or two of them in there. Then you go to a ring or two of people that you do have anger towards and kind of bubble this loving kindness up and kind of have it overflowing into that group. And then you end your meditation with all beings. You always like to end with all beings. Be all inclusive and not leave anybody out. And this is what's going to gradually transform your mind towards this loving kindness, where now in your day-to-day life, you can practice being loving and kind through your intention, speech, and actions, because that's where the real work's happening. Yeah, this meditation is important and you absolutely need it in order to make your way to enlightenment, because as you guys heard yesterday, the 3 poisons or 3 unwholesome roots of craving, anger, and ignorance, that's what the mind has, right? Because when you're angry, you're going to falsely attribute that to somebody else. That's what the mind does when it lacks wisdom of the Four Noble Truths. And you're going to push people away. You're going to be bitter, harsh, and hostile to them, or you're going to put your expectations on them. And this is going to stop the mind from doing that. So this meditation is going to fill up your mind, but then you need to go out into the world and be loving and kind through your intention, speech, and actions. The Buddha gives a great analogy on the usefulness of these techniques, all of these things that he teaches. These fetters that are in the mind, these pollutions, you need to gradually wear them away over time. It's not going to be one day, 1 week, or even 1 year that you're going to get to enlightenment. It's a multi-year journey. It took the Buddha 6 years to get to enlightenment. So it's going to take you some time to get to enlightenment. So as you're gradually training your mind with something like loving kindness meditation and all the other teachings as well, you're gradually wearing away these unwholesome qualities. And each day, you're not going to know how much you're wearing away. But when it's completely gone and exhausted, you're going to know that it's completely gone, because it'll be 1 month, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. You haven't been angry and frustrated with anybody around you, and you'll know that it's completely gone. So the Buddha uses a digging tool as an analogy. If you had a digging tool that had a wooden handle and you were digging with this tool every single day, you're wearing away wood from the handle of the tool every single day. But you're not going to know how much wood you're wearing away from the handle of the tool. But when it's completely exhausted and you need to replace the handle, you're going to know that. So each day when you're digging, you're not going to know how much wood you're wearing away. But when it's completely exhausted and you need to replace this tool, the handle of this tool, you'll know that it's time to replace it. So it's the same thing with your anger, hatred, and ill will. You're not going to know how much of it you're wearing away every single day. But when it's completely gone, you'll know that, because it'll be 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. You haven't been angry or frustrated with anybody. And you're going to see this happen in individual relationships. So as you guys heard yesterday, I think I shared in this class how I had a lot of bitterness and hostility towards my mom growing up, right? I didn't know how much anger I was wearing away each day, but I just stayed dedicated to the practice. And then slowly but surely, I got to a point where I was like, whoa, I haven't been angry with mom for like 6 months. And then it's like 1 year, and then it's 2 years. Next thing you know, it's 10 years. I haven't been angry or frustrated with this person at all. And I did that with mom, but then I still had anger towards my wife. Right? So you're going to see it kind of clear up in some of your different relationships. So not only are you going to need to customize your meditation on a case-by-case basis, but over the life of your practice, you're going to need to customize it. So for like the first 6 months of loving kindness meditation, I was doing a lot for myself and for mom, because I had a lot of negative inner talk in my mind and kind of inner dialogue that was degrading and diminishing, kind of self-talk. And I had a lot of resentment towards my mom. So I used to do this with, may I be peaceful, safe, well, and free of discontentedness. And then I would do it again. May I be peaceful, safe, well, and free of discontent. And then I do it again. I do like 3 rings for myself. And then I do like 2 or 3 rings for mom. And then I'd go to all beings. Right? And that was my meditation. I did that for about 6 months straight. Right? And then I started practicing generosity with mom. I started giving and sharing things with her without any expectation of anything in return. And this slowly helped me transform my mind to be loving and kind with mom. But then I had anger towards other people. Right? There was one time where I was in business and I had the landlord come in and threaten to kill me in front of my customers, in front of my employees, up in my face, yelling and hollering and shouting at me, threatening to kill me. So he went in my meditation for about a week or so, right? Or maybe there was a certain customer or employee that I was having challenges with. They went in my meditation for a few days or maybe a week or 2. Or maybe I was on my way to work and somebody cut me off and I noticed anger kind of coming up. And then maybe for 2 or 3 days, they were in my meditation. So it was May that person who cut me off in traffic this morning be peaceful, right? That's going to help your mind to not hold on to that anger. Because if you allow it to soak into your mind, it's going to stay there, right? So you'd like to break this up, not allowing the mind to stay wired with this anger. So you'd like to break it up as soon as possible. So you're going to need to customize this. You might notice week by week or every month, you're kind of tweaking your meditation a little bit. And you're going to need to be dedicated. And you're going to need to have confidence that this is going to work to help you. Because this is what will work to improve the condition of your mind and completely eliminate all your anger, hatred, and ill will, and even the slightest dislike. But you're going to need to go out into the world and practice your loving kindness through your intention, speech, and actions, starting your day with this loving kindness and then going out in the world and practicing through your intention, speech, and actions. And slowly you'll see the transformation of your mind and your life as well, in your relationships that you're interacting with people, both personally and professionally. You'll be able to transform your relationships, because the more you're putting out loving kindness, this is what's going to come back to you. You shouldn't expect it to come back, but just know that it will. And it's going to need to have consistent practice. It probably took me a good year or two to be practicing loving kindness with my mom before I started noticing more and more loving kindness come back. Same thing with my wife. It took me about 1.5 years to be practicing a lot of loving kindness with her before she completely exhausted all her anger towards me. And now we don't argue. We don't have anything like that. There's no hostility or bitterness in our relationship whatsoever. It's been many, 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 many years since we've ever had an argument or been upset like that, because we just don't have that in our minds anymore, right? So you can transform your mind and you can transform your relationships. And this is the meditation that's going to help you, but you need all those other factors of the Eightfold Path as well. So do you guys have any questions on this? Remember, those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom as well. No questions? Okay, let me see if we have anything here. Do we have a question? Yeah.
Is this working? Okay. I guess my question is, the peaceful, safe, well, free from discontentedness and suffering, are those the key words, or it's okay with, happy, healthy, peace, love, like whatever comes to your mind? Or
these are the phrases that work for me. If you're going to customize the phrases at all, you would like it to be what we refer to as a non-burdening statement. Whereas if you say, like, may mom be kind, this requires her to do something before you practice loving kindness with her. So you're not trying to change mom, right? But if I say, may mom be kind, now I'm not going to be loving and kind with her until she's kind with me. Or may mom be healthy, right? Like these kinds of things. You would like it to be where she doesn't have to do anything for you to have loving kindness towards her. So peace, safe, well, free of discontentedness. This isn't you burdening her with anything. This is you cultivating this loving kindness within your mind towards this person without them needing to do anything. So there is the ability to customize these. I know that these work, so I don't necessarily recommend someone to customize that, but they could. There's other phrases that would work as well. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take a break for you guys here. It's about 10:15. Let's take a 15-minute break until 10:30. When we come back, I'm going to teach you how to identify your cravings and almost surgically go in and remove them and eliminate them from the mind. So enjoy your break, and I'll see you back in about 15 minutes. Okay? Thank you so much.